Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you might be. And of course, we all know that I love the fact that it doesn't matter where we are in the world or what time zone we are in, we can all come together in one place at one time and have amazing conversation. So I'm so super excited that we have Laura Krauss here today. We'll let her do her introduction in a moment, but I want to again welcome everyone. Let us know where you are located in the comments below. Give us a shout out so that we can acknowledge you. If you're on replay, be sure to let us know as well so we can come back and engage in conversation with you. But in the meantime, I want to really get back to our guest, Laura. We have a lot to talk about today. And so I'm super excited that she's here. I'm going to share just briefly where I am located. Then I'm going to pass it on over to Laura and really let her dive into her own introduction. But before I even do any of that, it's interesting. The way that I met Laura was, as most of my guests on any of my shows, is through LinkedIn. And what I love about Laura is her vulnerability. I can't even say that today. So that word, I love how much she just opens up and shares. We bonded, I think, immediately because of that, but also because she is a woman in sales. And while we'll learn a little bit about her shift here in the last couple of months, but she spent over 25 years in sales. And there are just a handful of us who have been around for 25, 30 years, doing sales in the tech space and have done it successfully. So I love how we had the opportunity to meet, how what we bonded over. And, I have been through some things myself that are very similar to what Laura is talking about. So I am super excited to have her share a little bit more about herself. As an FYI, I'm here in Houston. So Laura, when I pass on over to you, let us know where you are and then give us a little bit more of a background about who you are, what you do, and kind of, what your thoughts are for the day to kick us off. And I've already put in the notes kind of what we're going to talk about, but I'm going to let you kick us off with that and really open up the floor. So that being said, again, before I pass it over, make sure you let us know where you're located. Again, I'm from Houston. I'm going to pass it on over now to Laura.
Thanks, Denise. I am calling in today from my home here in Frederick, Maryland. I see we have a follower here from Ireland, so it's nice to have some visitors from over the pond, but it's so great to be with you here today. And yes, Denise, we absolutely met over LinkedIn and very, very vulnerably shared our stories over the years. Yeah, it's hard to believe that I am fast approaching almost 25 years being in sales. I started the first part of my career in sales operations roles, working for some awesome companies in the hospitality and pharmaceutical industries. Then I got the bug to own my own franchise for a while, and I did that with my husband from about 2008 to 2011. I tell people that was the best and worst experience of my life, but I'd do it all over again because of all the lessons that were learned from that experience. And then I went back to sales operations, which was everything that I thought I knew and loved at the time. Eventually worked my way up to a sales operations management role. And then during that tenure, I actually implemented SAP Concur expense and travel management software. And I was so excited about expense reports and had such a great experience with my rep. She said to me, Laura, you're just way too excited about travel and expense management software. You should come work for us. And so I kind of kept that in my back pocket. And a couple of months later, I got my first opportunity to jump into tech sales. So that was back in 2016. And so over the last 8 or 9 years, I've had just an amazing opportunity to work for not only SAP Concur, but some amazing, really global brands out there in the marketplace today. And then most recently, the last 4 years, I was working in the procurement space, had worked my way up from a top performer as an individual contributor rep, was tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, would you lead one of our sales teams as we're looking to expand and grow? I said, sure. At this point in my career, I was doing a lot of mentorship and training anyway, specifically with a lot of women, because let's face it, there aren't a lot of women in software sales. And I wanted to kind of take the opportunity to give back, right? I had such a prolific career in sales and was, really given the opportunity to shine. I wanted to be able to provide that encouragement and support and build a team of my own. And so I was busy doing that. And then last November, I was just completely blindsided by a layoff that I will full admit I was always one of those people who thought layoffs don't happen to people like me. I'm a top performer. It's something that happens to other people. There's no way that this could be happening, right? And so over the last 9 months, I've spoken to probably over 400 people who have shared their layoff stories with me. And I've found that my passion for what I thought was helping people in a sales environment and helping them with coaching and so forth, I'm able to take those skills and now help people who have been laid off and help them with encouragement and support and giving them an opportunity to share how their layoff experience is now shaping them. And so I took the opportunity over the last 9 months to write a book. It's called The Layoff Cooties. It's Them, Not You. And it's going to be published later this fall. And it's all about my own personal layoff experience and the lessons learned, and really the grieving process from losing the friendships that I thought I had in a work environment. And how do I take that rejection and now redirect it towards the next best thing in my life, right? And so, I'm just really excited to be here today and talk more about that.
I'm excited to have you because I think for me, what resonates is the grieving process that you and I were talking about when we first had our first Zoom, but also that we were just kind of reminiscing over prior to going live, which was, for me, it felt like a family when I got laid off. And Sia says, I'm a proud layoff, lay off,
Yeah.
laid off.
Yeah.
So first, welcome, Sia, welcome, Anna, and welcome to anyone else who's out there. Again, be sure to just comment below and let's engage in some conversation, and also ask any questions that you might have, because right now, before we even go back to my story, if you look at some staggering numbers, to me, they're super staggering. Right now, just in tech sales alone, there were no stats, so I couldn't find percentages, but over 200,000 people have been laid off in 2024 alone. Over 200,000. And since 2022, it was 400 and something. So round up to 500,000 people almost have been laid off from tech within the textile space. That's just textiles. That doesn't include anyone else. And so this is not something that's totally uncommon these days, unfortunately, but yet so impacting negatively.
Yes, absolutely. And, I'm learning more and more that this is something that doesn't just impact tech sales. Of course, it's impacting, all industries, all verticals.
Mm-hmm.
But what's fascinating about it is I don't think it's getting the attention nationally and globally that it should be getting. I'm certainly not reading about any type of unemployment or, drastic numbers in our headlines today. But I can tell you my DMs are filling up fast and furious with people sharing their stories of what they've experienced with their own layoffs. And, I think it's several factors, right? When you're first laid off, your first thought is, oh my goodness, from a financial aspect, I need to, pay my mortgage, get food on the table, take care of my family, et cetera, right? Like those are all very, innate feelings that you're going to have immediately when you're laid off, right? You need to pay for those things. But I think a lot of people don't give themselves the attention that they deserve when it comes to the emotional impact of a layoff. And that's really the conversation that I'm trying to start with both my book and my online community, the Layoff Cooties Couch, that I just launched this week. I think giving people an opportunity to share emotionally how they're feeling. You talked about the stages of grief, right? We all go through it. And what's fascinating to me that I've learned on my own grief journey is that it's not something you're ever going to get over. It's something that you get through. And I think as human beings, grief, whether it's layoff grief or the loss of someone passing away, whatever it is, that's something that stays with you forever. And it's all about how that grief evolves over time, because it's never truly going to go away. And with layoff grief, there's all kinds of aspects to it, right? It's the rejection of feeling like your company no longer wants you. It's the rejection of feeling like, hey, did I even like have an impact for the 4 years that I was there and the people's lives that I touched, right? You second guess everything there is about your value and your self-worth and your self-identity. I like to tell people my job was like part of my identity, just like my big brown eyes. Like it was literally like who Laura Krauss was, right? Like Laura Krauss is our VP of sales, right? Laura Krauss is a sales professional. Like that is how I valued myself. And it didn't mean that I didn't appreciate being a wife and a mother and, you know, all those other things that I bring to the table. But it's just, I feel good when I'm bringing my best self in a career setting. And when you go from a complete calendar one day to literally a blank calendar the next, it is an extremely humbling and emotionally challenging period in your life. And anyone who's been laid off can say that they've experienced that.
I mean, I'm one of those, right? I mean, for me, I was at the company for 11 and a half years. And so when I got laid off, it was like, you know, I didn't allow myself to grieve. In fact, you know, it wasn't until 2 years later when I realized how depressed I was that I started through this journey of trying to heal, this journey of healing. And I can probably say I'm on the other side, but as I went through that journey of healing, what I realized was it wasn't just childhood trauma that I experienced. It was this loss that I never really dealt with because I thought that I was family, that they were my family, right? And what I realized was it wasn't just that I was feeling rejected from the job, I was feeling rejected by my family. And so, but you were talking about someone that you were engaging with that, you know, 10 years later, and, you know, they still have feelings about having been laid off 10 years ago. You're right. It doesn't go away, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there are several posts that I've done over the last couple of months where the next 24 hours I get literally hundreds of DMs in my chat messages saying with people sharing their stories. And there was one recently where I just had a plethora of ones where people, you know, were gainfully employed today, loved their jobs, but what I spoke about so emotionally resonated with them. It brought back feelings from 5, 10, 15 years ago. Because let's face it, rejection is rejection, right? It's a human innate feeling. And when you bring up those memories, it's gonna jar that. So that's fairly common.
I am putting it on mute because they are, Laura, can you put yours on mute for a second? Let's see if it's, can you, oh, so there's a difference in the feedback. So people are hearing the feedback, Laura, when you're from me. So that feedback that I was hearing when you and I were kind of testing out prior. So when I'm talking, maybe if you can mute, and then I'll try to do the same for you. But you know, one of the things that I think is pretty amazing is that you and I were talking about this. I don't hear a lot of people talking about their experience with layoffs, right? And I love that you show up every single day. And I know sales has been your gig, and I know that you're good at sales and you've done a great job mentoring women, and you have made a great stride in mentoring all salespeople, not just even women. But I think where you feel like you found your niche is this ability to talk about this layoff in a way that most people aren't. I mean, I feel like most of us feel shameful, sad, whatever negative emotion it might be. But you're just taken to the streets and you're just talking about it. Not even just with your book. You're showing up every single day on LinkedIn, having the conversations in front of people and then in the DMs. I mean, I just think it's so freaking amazing. And Sia, it's okay. I appreciate you letting us know. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you, part of my healing process was vulnerably posting on LinkedIn in the days and weeks after I was laid off. You know, just a little history here. I started being on LinkedIn in 2012, I think. And from 2012 until November 29th, 2023, the day of my layoff, I think I had around 2,000 followers. I think now 9 months later, I'm around just over 9,000 followers. And that is simply from showing up every single day, as you said, posting vulnerably how I feel. I don't write my posts ahead of time. I literally write them the day of based on how I'm feeling. So, if I read something in the comments and that jars me to come up with a post, then that's what I'm posting about the next day, right? And I feel like that's just part of the authentic way that I'm showing up. But I dedicated my book to everybody that supported me when I first joined LinkedIn, because I will tell you, Denise, if it were not for those people, I can assure you I would be sitting in a fetal position in my bed still from that experience. I was in such dire need of connection after losing my job and subsequently losing all the work relationships and friendships because they didn't want to associate with me anymore. It's like I had the cooties, right? Like, we can't talk to her. Like, she's no longer part of our organization. We're going to completely cut her off, right? I was in such dire need of connection that LinkedIn really helped save my soul. And so I will always be indebted to this community for what they gave me to support me during that time, that I obviously want to be able to provide that for other people as well. But here's the thing. Sales is all about helping people, right? If you're doing it the right way, that's all you're doing. I'm simply taking my 25 years of experience in sales and helping people in a completely different way. So I say all the time, everybody's in sales. We're all selling a part of ourselves to other people, regardless of who we interact with, right? And I'm just utilizing that empathy and that accountability and that vulnerability and authenticity and the way that I led my sales teams for years. I'm just doing it in a different way to help a different subset of people. And I'm honored and humbled to be in this situation. I'll say this. I don't know how many faith followers we have here, and your definition of faith might vary amongst who's listening, but I'm a very faithful person. I do believe in God. And I also know that that my faith has helped get me through this experience as well. I firmly believe with every bone in my body that God is saying to me, Laura, your platform at your last company was far too small. And I am now preparing you for a much larger platform for you to help people in ways you never even imagined. And that is my North Star. And that is my daily prayer each and every day when I wake up, is I want to be able to have that impact for other people, to let them know that they're not alone. They have the support and encouragement that they need, and they can and will work again.
I mean, I think that's huge because when you go through a layoff, I mean, that gave me chills when you were talking about that, because when you go through a layoff, you feel really isolated and really alone, mostly because of our own doing, right? We're embarrassed, we're frustrated, we're sad, and it's just really difficult. And then when you have to pick yourself up, you have to pick yourself up by yourself. Maybe you have the support of your family, but even then you only share what you want to share with them, right? Because no one can imagine the weight that you have on your shoulders, both from, this, I'm embarrassed, to how am I going to position myself in an interview, to how am I going to get where am I going to find that next job so that I can contribute to my family? And then showing up with your friend to your friends and those outside of the work environment, so that they don't even know that anything's going on, because I mean, geez, you don't want anyone to know that life is sucking ass at the moment, right? So I mean, it is a tremendous amount of weight. And so to have someone like you showing up for us and helping us to get through those moments, right? Because no one, again, talks about it. So I think it's super admirable. And you're right. Michelle says, let me pull her up. She said you were meant for a bigger audience in a way that you couldn't see while you were inside an organization. And that is so very true.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel that. It's true. Like I remember in the days after I was laid off, I would go from moments of complete, like, at peace, like, okay, this happened, to just visceral emotions of rage, sadness, disappointment, like the full spectrum, right? And that's the thing with grief, right? Like it's yes, there are stages to it, but it doesn't go linearly. It zigs and zags and goes in every which way. And just when you think you've gotten through one stage, you find yourself all the way back at the beginning, a day or two later. And I think that's all part of the process, right? I liken layoff grief similar to the death of a loved one. And I'm certainly not saying that, it's one and the same, right? With being a people and a job, but the grief stages itself is exactly the same. Like, I grieve my father 5 years now after his death a lot differently than I did 5 years ago when he first passed away, right? And I'm sure that I will grieve my layoff 5 years from now very differently than the way I do right now, right? That's all part of the process. And I think when we give ourselves the opportunity to sit in that grief, even if it's feels like it's a day or a week or a month, like, we owe that to ourselves, because that's helping us actually grow and learn years down the road, right? And yes, while there may be a focus of, hey, I need to go out there and support my family from a financial standpoint, there are opportunities throughout your everyday where you can give yourself the emotional release that you need. And part of that is connecting with other people who have been through similar situations. You know, in talking with these hundreds of people, it never ceased to amaze me, just kind of the similarities in the things and the conversations that were coming up. And it was both encouraging and discouraging, right? It's encouraging to know that you're not alone, but it's also extremely discouraging to know how prevalent it is out there. And there have been countless times where I have actually connected, one laid off person to another because they're similars, and their similar situation was just so just transparently where they needed to connect. And so that's what I'm trying to do with this Layoff Cooties Couch community, is to bring a lot of people into a very safe and welcoming environment outside of LinkedIn, because let's face it, a lot of people don't want to put their vulnerability and their true feelings out there on LinkedIn. They're worried about their next employer, or, what someone's going to think about them, right? So if I can create this space and this community where people can go and actually connect with other people emotionally from a mental health perspective, that's extremely helpful, right? And so, my launch this week only has a couple of members in it, but I foresee this growing just over time as people learn more about it and learn that it's available. Because, to your point, not a lot of people are talking about this. I'm kind of creating the resources that I wish I had 9 months ago. And isn't that what all great salespeople do?
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have the enablement you need, you go create it yourself, honey. Right? Like, make it yourself and make it your own, and create a process, rinse and repeat, right? And so that's what I'm trying to do just for this growing layoff community.
I love that. And I would engage while you're talking, but we have that, the behind the scenes. I mean, everyone can hear the back sound, but anyway, I don't know why I'm struggling with describing that, but so I had to put you on, so I'm putting you on mute when I'm talking, but I mean, I think you're right. And one of the things that Sia said is, no one cares if you've been laid off, because that's really the reality of it. So we should take a moment to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Yes, sit in the grief, because that is one thing I did not do. And it came back to bite me later, right? Because I didn't. And, it was wrapped up in a lot of other grief. I had my own issues to deal with, but that was so heart-wrenching. And I worried about what other people thought about me. But the reality is, Sia's right. I mean, no one really cares. Doesn't mean we have to go out and boo-hoo in front of everyone all the time or make it a woe is me. No, but we can share our experiences, because I can guarantee you, if 500,000 salespeople have been laid off over the last 2 years, and tech sales only, I am 100% certain that they need to hear from others and be a part of a community like yours. So maybe share a little bit about some of the things that you've got. Oh, what Sia's saying, it's almost like saying, I didn't get the acting gig, and everyone just says that sucks. No judgment, because it's so common. And that's true. It is so very true. Maybe share with us kind of some of the things you've got coming and going. You talked briefly about your book, so maybe share a little bit more about your book, but also what your community is comprised and why you launched that community, because you and I were talking about the number of DMs that you have. So maybe share a little bit more about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with the community piece first. So it's called the Layoff Cooties Couch. The link is in my post the last couple of days for people to access. It's $48 a month. And what I've done is I have gone out and asked many coaches, counselors, and motivational speakers who I've had the privilege of getting to know over the years to come in and donate an hour of their time on various topics that will resonate within the layoff community. So I've got people talking about finances, I've got people talking about grief, I've got people talking about confidence building, belief, how to update your LinkedIn profile, like the full spectrum of topics, right? And as more and more community members join, I solicit their advice because let's face it, this isn't just my community, it's their community as well. And I want to be able to provide the valuable resources that they need. So for $48 a month, I don't know where you can get a better deal than that. If you just have one coach directly, you're going to pay hundreds of dollars just for that one interaction. So in addition to those, what I call events that will happen over the course of the weeks and months ahead, the community itself is built off of a software from Mighty Networks, and they're a community-driven platform. So there are tools and resources in there that are meant to help engage people to initiate conversations. So I've created all of these different spaces with different topics where people can go in and share the day that they got laid off, talk about that experience, how they shared with their family and friends what they went through, talk about that experience, how they lost their friendships from work, talk about that experience. Where are they in their stage of grief right now? Talk about that experience, right? And so what happens is all these people get in there sharing their stories with everyone else in the community, also sharing their stories and creating connections, right? And then you obviously have the resources of the coaches and counselors and where that's going to grow to. So that's the community part. And then the book writing part, I started writing and journaling. I've always enjoyed that over the course of my life. And right after my layoff, I started journaling several times during the day. And I thought, you know what? I need to be able to share this with other people. This isn't something that's just meant for me. And what started out as a healing process for me to be able to write this story turned into so much more, because as I was having these conversations with other people, I just knew that the things that I was talking about that I had experienced was resonating so much with other people. I knew that they could read my story and say, oh my gosh, I felt that too. And let's face it, everyone's not going to write a book. Everyone's not going to post vulnerably on LinkedIn, and everyone may not even send that private DM. But I guarantee you that everybody who has been through a layoff has felt the things that I've talked about in my book and can resonate from that experience. And it's not just for people that were laid off. It's also for people who were left behind, right? How are you as an employee not only treating the people who left, but how does your world change? How was your world rocked when your sales leader that you believed in was kicked to the curb, right? Or, that colleague who had so much responsibility and now it's your work, it's thrown on you, right? So the layoff doesn't just impact the person who was laid off, it absolutely impacts the people that were left behind. And then the third part of it is your family, right? I was the greater breadwinner in my family, and I enjoyed that position, right? Now we've learned to live off of my husband's salary since I lost my W-2, but I felt like I was a huge failure to my family, right? Especially since they know how much I love to work and they know how much I value my career. I felt like I disappointed them. And for what? No fault of my own. I didn't put my name on that spreadsheet list to get laid off, right? So yeah, the community and the book, again, started out as a healing process for me. But to your point, it's meant to be shared with everyone else to know that they're not alone and that there is support and encouragement out there for them.
And I do want to just highlight, I can remember back in the day, I don't even remember what year it was, but I worked for a company that doesn't even exist anymore. But when I found out that the list of those that were getting laid off, I was not on that list, but I knew a lot of people who were. And I knew days before the layoff actually happened. Don't ask me how I knew that, mostly because I just had a manager who adored me, who shared a lot of information. And what I what was terrible about that experience was the guilt that I felt, not only prior to, but after they got laid off, because I survived, right? I was still there and they were good people. Like, it wasn't there were a handful that, yes, they were not doing a good job, and you knew that, they shouldn't be there anyway. But there were a lot of people who were amazing individuals, who were hitting their numbers, who seemed like they were doing everything that they needed to do. Because when a layoff happens, we don't always know why. It is not because they are sucking with their numbers all the time. Sometimes it's not even about their work effort. Sometimes it's all just about they haven't maybe done enough of their own advertising or promotion. Maybe it's that their manager hasn't done that. Maybe it's that, they get paid too much money, or they're making too much money. It could be a slew. And maybe sometimes it's just a flip of the coin. We have really no idea what goes on behind the scenes to make that determination. And so for me, it was like this horrific feeling and this sense of guilt. So for those that are listening, it's not just about when you get laid off, it's about your colleagues when they get laid off, and the pain that you go through, and the guilt and all the other things that you feel. It's not just about you, it's about everyone that is a part of this process.
And can we just talk about like the ridiculous platitudes that people say out there of the, hey, don't take it personally, it's just business? Because everything about losing your job is personal. It impacts every aspect of your life. It's kind of like when someone passes away and you say, oh, you'll be in my thoughts and prayers. It's like the societal norm of thing that you say because you don't know what else to say. So you just like throw that out there, right? What I've learned in talking with hundreds of people, Denise, is that everyone's layoff situation is unique. Like, there are things that transpired prior to someone's layoff that you as an outsider have no insight in. So for you to come across with these like general platitudes and just throw people in a bucket of, hey, reduction in force happens all the time, or don't take it personally, it's just business, or just get back out there, like you'll find another job, like fully, I admit it, I was that person a year ago. When my colleagues were laid off just several months prior to my own layoff at my same company, we knew that layoff was happening. It completely jarred the entire sales organization. I knew I was safe because I actually got people added to my team. I was told that ahead of time. So as people were waiting on their computers at 7 p.m. at night to see if they got the infamous email, I was not one of those people. I knew I was safe. It wasn't until months later, when I was the only person at my level at a global organization who was let go. And there are events that transpired prior to my layoff that led up to that, I believe. And I talk about that in my book. But unless you realize each person's unique situation, please don't say those general platitudes to somebody, because you have absolutely no idea. And I can tell you that, like, after my layoff, I went back to the people who were laid off just months prior to me. I contacted them and I apologized to them. I said, I am so sorry that I never reached out to you after your layoff. I know you didn't deserve it. And I know you've landed another job since then. I said, but I'm embarrassed for myself that I never said to you, hey, let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. How can I help? Or just to recognize it. I always just assumed, oh, they're smart, they'll find another job, it'll be okay, right? Like, no, like something as simple as sending a text or a phone call or reaching out to somebody after they've been laid off can do wonders for that person's emotional trauma. And if there's one piece of advice that I would give anybody today who's listening to this, who actually knows someone who's been laid off, reach out to them. Take the 5 minutes, pick up the phone and call them. Send them a gift card for, a meal if you know that they're struggling or something. Like, there are things that you can do. Write them a recommendation, or introduce them to somebody in your network, or literally just send a text saying, hey, wanted to let you know that I was thinking about you today. Right? Like, those little things sound so insignificant. But if I had received any of those things from the people that I worked with in the days and weeks and months, and even now, like, I can't even tell you what those correspondences would mean to me. It means.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Sorry, I put you on mute and I did it too soon this time, so I apologize. But I feel the same way. And again, for those that are just tuning in, there's feedback I now know what I'm trying to describe. There's feedback when I'm talking, so I have to put her on mute so I can't engage fully like I normally do, right? So I apologize to all those out there. But you know, I am one of those people who, if I don't know what to say, I'm just not going to say a whole heck of a lot, because even in a death, you don't know whether it's a death, whether it's a layoff, like you mentioned, you don't know why they got laid off. You have no idea what they're feeling, because we all grieve differently, and we all, really focus on different things that affect us so personally, right? But I will say that it is so immensely grateful when, or appreciative, when you can actually just send a little text message or a DM that says, "Hey, thinking about you." You don't even have to say anything else. Just let them know that you're thinking about them, or sending you positive vibes, or thoughts and prayers today. You were on my mind. Wanted to say hello. Let me know if you need anything. And I will tell you, this is still one thing I still struggle with sometimes. When you usually ask someone what they need, they're probably going to say nothing. So you need to really think outside the box and figure out what they might need, or what you would want if you were in their position, and just do it, because they aren't going to tell you that they want it. And oh, by the way, people really want to both help and be helped. We just do a poor job of communicating that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to your point, right? It's as simple as saying, "Hey, I'm here to listen. If you just want to chat, I'm here to listen. If you decide a month later that you need something, please know I'm here for you." And it can be as simple as that, right? One of the things that I grieve the most from my lost job is not my livelihood, and that surprises people, right? Like yes, I miss the money. I did very well in sales, and of course that was an adjustment to my household when I lost that monetary value. But for me, my grieving process was the lost relationships. Because of the way I led and the way that I mentored, I invested a lot of time and energy into other people. I genuinely cared about who they were, their families, what they wanted out of their careers. I had friends, or I had work colleagues that I used to go on vacations with. They were guests in my home, like they knew my family, right? And when I tell you today that they've blocked me on LinkedIn, or they've stopped communicating with me because of whatever bullshit corporate narrative, apologize for my French there, but no other word for it, for whatever ridiculous narrative they've been told after my departure, I can't tell you how much that hurts me, more so than the loss of my W-2. And I mean, I could share cards that they've written to me over the years. Like, you'd think I walked on water for the things that I did for them, right? Like, and I look back on those cards now and I wonder, like, did I really have that impact on them? Like, were they just using me at the time? And I know that I absolutely had an impact on them, and I don't believe they were using me. But those are the thoughts that come into your mind after you're no longer a part of their organization. And I'm on LinkedIn. I can see when they post about upcoming webinars, or they're on their President's Club trip, and they're at their sales kickoff, and yeah, like there are times where I would watch their posts and just be so sad and disappointed, because I knew I should be there, or I thought I should be there. And it wasn't until just recently, Denise, that I tell myself when I do see those posts, like, no, I'm not supposed to be there. Like, there's a reason why my layoff happened. And I can honestly tell you today, on August 27th, I'm glad it happened, because I am helping people in new ways that I never imagined before. And I'm grateful for it now. But 9 months ago, I couldn't see that.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Laura. I mean, I know I'm in the right place. I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I know that everything works out for a reason. And there was a reason for my layoff and the experiences that I had after that got me here. But even today, it still makes me sad when I see some of the club trips, or some of the people that are posting. I invited people even to this event, and I don't usually invite invite people to my shows. So I actually decided I was going to adopt that strategy again. And so I did that today. And even then I was inviting people that still work there. And it broke my heart. Doesn't mean that I am resentful or angry or that I'm not happy where I'm at. I mean, I'm in the best place. I am the happiest I've ever been in all of my life. I don't define myself based on the sales numbers that I'm hitting or the money that I'm making any longer, right? Which is salespeople. And maybe it's just tech sales, but salespeople tend to do that often. I mean, I'm in a really great place. And even still, 4 years later, it still makes me a bit sad. It's something that is always going to be a part of me. That sadness may lessen, but I'm still going to reflect back. And so knowing that there are others out there who are going through it, listening to people like yourself, actually taking a stand and messaging that it's okay and that it's part of the process, that's something that we all need. And I appreciate that you're just doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, I believe this is kind of my purpose. And, you know, I used to joke that, you know, I'm 45 years old and I always said, oh, when I turn 50, I'll leave corporate America. I just put this like arbitrary number out there that, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I don't know why we do that as human beings. We kind of put these like ridiculous milestone markers out there. But, you know, I feel like I could work the rest of my life. Like I feel like I got another 45 years in me. And right now, this is my passion project. Right now, this is how I want to make an impact on the world. Right now, this is how I feel like I can best help other people to get through these challenges of being on the other end of a layoff. And, you know, I don't know if it's going to be my life's work for the next 45 years, but I can tell you that I am passionate about it. I've met so many amazing people over the last 9 months, and that's really been the silver lining for me, right? Like, yes, I lost these handful of relationships with people that I absolutely still care about and love and are rooting for behind the scenes, even if they've chosen to block me and get me out of their lives. Like I still genuinely care about them. But I would have never in a million years met some of the amazing people that I have, such as yourself and, you know, all these other folks that I've had just the privilege of getting to know over the last 9 months had this not happened. And so, you know, how could you not believe that, you know, this is part of the chosen path? Like, it's just, I don't know how you can not think that this is just a faithful voyage, because I believe it is.
Well, and I think whether it doesn't even have to be that you believe in Heavenly Father, it could just be that you believe in the universe, or, you know, whatever your belief system is. When you are taken down a path, you have a choice to either walk that path or fight it and do something different. And the fact that you're just walking the path is admirable, and we thank you for that. I do want to say a couple of things before we go, because we want to wrap up. It is getting close to, and I appreciate everyone who's been out there, who's been engaging. And for those of you that are on Team Replay, just let us know that you're out there so we can come back and have some conversation with you. Laura, one of the things that I think is super important when we're having conversations like this is leaving everyone with a thought, a practical tip that they can take with them today. But I'd also like you to share with how they can engage, because you've got a community that people can come in. And for me, my takeaway, I usually have the guests do their takeaway first, but I think this is important. I think the takeaway for me is that I think we need to reach out more. If we are in the midst of a problem, a situation like this where we're getting laid off, people want to help and you need to be helped. So seek out those that can help you and be vulnerable. Allow yourself to open up to those individuals. And Laura, I think that's a great segue for you to introduce a little bit about kind of how they can do that, especially engaging with you and your community, and then leave maybe your most practical tip with someone who is either getting laid off, has been laid off, or is still remaining. They're still there and have experienced others who have been laid off. Maybe you could leave your parting thoughts.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the best way that you can connect with me is on LinkedIn. I have all of my information about my community and my upcoming book built into my LinkedIn profile, as well as I included on my daily posts. If you'd like to follow me and ring my bell, as they say, I post daily on layoff topics that vary from a various subset of topics along the way. And I love actually engaging in the comments. So I'm not a post and ghost type person. I will engage with the people who engage in the posts. I'll leave you with my favorite quote that I used in sales all the time. When you compete against others, you get bitter. When you compete against yourself, you get better. And so for anybody who has been laid off or anyone left behind, don't turn it into a competition anymore. Like, do the things that you need to do to help yourself. And if part of helping yourself is actually being around other people who have experienced the same thing as you have, invest in yourself and do that. You won't be disappointed.
I love that. I think you did an amazing job in leaving your lasting thought, your last thought. So thank you for that. If you wouldn't mind, it'd be great, Laura, if you could put your community in the comments below after the show. And if you haven't connected with her, if you aren't following her, go do that now. And start to engage in conversation with her and get engaged in our community. I mean, this is an opportunity that you have right now. You have a door that is opening, so you can walk through it or you can close it. And in this moment, put your vulnerability aside, your pride aside. Don't think about either of those, your ego. Open the door, or the door's already open. Now just walk through it and engage with Laura, get to know her a little bit, and learn and be a part of her community that is going to grow. So it's a little bit smaller now, but she just launched it. It is going to be larger. So Laura, I want to thank you for being here. I think it was amazing. I am going to unmute you. So if you can talk, it's just that we can't talk together because of the feedbacks. For anyone who's listening, we have some feedback when I'm talking and she's talking, so it doesn't really work well together. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined us this morning. For those of you that don't know, we do the Sellovatorz live show every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Central, which is Houston, Texas time. Come and join us. We have various different topics. We talk to others, all sales experts, and on really important topics. And this one was super important because there have been so many people laid off that are continuing. That is not going to stop at this rate, especially because we are seeing we're in the midst of, whether it's been announced or not, we're in the midst of this kind of recession. We've got the elections happening. We also have AI. And with all of that noise, there are more layoffs that are going to continue to happen. Reach out, ask for help. People are willing to help. Thank you all for being here. Go make sure you follow Laura. And if you are on Team Replay, just let us know so that we can come back and engage with you. Thank you to everyone yet again. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. I am going to, as we leave here, I have started, although I'm getting a little not quite as good right now at it. I'm going to start playing some music and then we're going to end this stream.